Prairie Mosaic is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008, the North Dakota Council on the Arts, and by the members of Prairie Public.
Welcome to Prairie Mosaic, a patchwork of stories about the arts, culture, and history in our region.
Hi, I'm Bob Dambach.
And I'm Barb Gravel. On this edition, we'll trace the history of beer brewing in Minnesota, hear a poem read by a state champion, and enjoy the sounds of a band led by sisters. As far back as Viking times, Scandinavians relied on sheepskins to survive freezing Nordic winters. Over time, women began to beautify the furry blankets with symbols that conveyed personal and family history. Today, a few textile artists are bringing back the ancient Scandinavian art, known as skinfell.
We have had as many as 100 sheep. I raise sheep. I've raised them for 35 years. I've milked sheep, made sheep cheese. I've been a spinner for 35 years. And then somebody said, you know, Karen, you have to explore something called skinfell, because you have to know what you can do with those sheepskins to make them into sheep blankets. And the story started. I did about 2.5 years of research before I went to Norway to learn to make them. So skinfeller is actually a sheep blanket. There's only 8 breeds. They're very fussy about this, what they use, because of the type of skin. You use Pelsau, you use Gotland, you use Icelandic sheep. An older sheep will have a tougher hide. It's very nice to get a younger sheep, about a year old, and yet sometimes you can get a larger hide if you get an older sheep. The hard part is when you start squaring up the hides and sewing them together. Every seam is sewn 3 times. They say if you stick your finger and bleed on the hide, you bless the hide. My hides have been so blessed. I had to put red in the design because it had blood marks. To do the biggest one out there, I went through 25 needles. Everything they made in their art was functional and survival. In the homes in Norway, they had no heat. They needed a warm skin next to their body, and sometimes the whole family would crawl into one bed. They raised sheep because with the sheep you could get the meat, the milk, the fleece for knitting, and the hides. Kind of a story quilt. You see the sheep. This is one block, this is one block, this is one block, and then the edging is a block about this long, and then you kind of line it up. And this was my first. And if you pour back the one edge, you'll find 5 generations of my family history. And this is what they would do. They would have all the family history and give it to the woman, and then she would pass it on to her daughter. But what's interesting, when the settlers came to America, came to the Red River Valley, we didn't see the skinfellers come with. And I don't know if the family said, no, this stays here, didn't have room in the trunk, or they got so busy pulling out stumps and plowing the ground that they forgot. Because when you see them, they built their tables, they built their looms, they brought their spinning wheels with, but they didn't bring the skinfells. And so it's sort of like it disappeared. And now it's a resurgent. I'm bringing it back so the Norwegians here can really appreciate this culture that is part of their homeland, part of their Hjemkomst. I actually taught Skinfell class at Moorhead, at Fergus here, and at Morris. And I am struggling to get people to process the sheepskins in America as soft as the beautiful ones in the hall, because they are doing what they call brain tanning. They want the skin side as soft and as smooth to touch as the fleece side. It's very difficult to have it processed here, because to brain tan and get the skin soft, and to also keep the long, like 5-6 inch fleece side not matted, you take the brain from the animal, and you take and you rub that into the skin. But part of the thing that makes them so soft is the amount of time they work it. Now you will take a hide in over, let's say, a fence post, and you will rub the hide side back and forth, rub the brain into it, and the more you work it, the softer it gets. I have taught people how to sew wristlets, baby booties, and baby mittens in my classes. I don't want it to be an insurmountable cost for people to learn this history. So it takes the right cost, the right skins, and all these things coming together to make it workable. Because if you make it only a millionaire can learn it, that's not the type of thing I want to do. I want to teach the heritage. I want to do it right. I have spun up at Rollag for, at least 33 years. And I demonstrate a lot of places. And so it's gotten me from this shy teenager to a person that very openly talks about her culture and her heritage and shares what I know. My daughter passed away in 2002. She was 24. Tammy was my catalyst. The history and her love of history, her love of wanting to know all about the different styles of bunads in Norway influenced me to say, we want to do these things. We don't want to do these things right. We want to know the whole background. And so history comes together. It sort of was a legacy that I lived on with her. And so for her, I take this journey to live and explore and learn.
In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt proposed an ambitious program that came to be known as the Civilian Conservation Corps. Minnesota's economy and infrastructure greatly benefited from this program, as did the thousands of enlisted young men. Elisa Corinne uses music to tell the story of the CCC.
Civilian Conservation Corps is forgotten now. It's only lore, but our works remain to remind you when 3.5 million men joined Roosevelt's Tree Army, built country and economy, and out of the Great Depression marched a wave of human progression. Put the shovels in our hands, we can take it. Send local boys across the lands, we can take it. Give us swamps and forests to reclaim, we can take it. Give us America's wilds to tame. We weren't even 20, some came in at 16. Didn't need money or degree, just an interview for the CCC. They asked, are you robust? Are you crabby, optimistic, and happy? 1 out of every 5 got to stay to earn for their families $1 a day. Take off your clothes, boys, show you're tough. Medical exam in the buff. 2 pairs of shoes, 2 trousers, 2 shirts, underwear, and a cap for work. Nothing fit, 2 sizes too big, but you didn't complain. Not worth it to quit. Build our bunks, then build the camp, we can take it. Wield a shovel, then an axe, we can take it. Cut ski trails even if we can't ski, we can take it. Hide behind a bush when there's no latrine. Bugle call before lights out. Reveille, 600 hours. Trumpet blows you out of the sack. 200 men in a mad dash. Latrine and wash, shower and shave. Single file to breakfast. Eat what you take. Enough food to gain 10 pounds at least. Never at home have I had such a feast. Daybreak in the barracks, truck to the field. 8 hours of labor, return piecemeal. After dinner, after work, take a class, play a sport, learn to read, learn a new skill, hard work and goodwill. Cut new trails and fire breaks, we can take it. Fight forest fires with whatever it takes, we can take it. Build dams, bridges and miles of road, we can take it. Earn $5, send 25 home. We didn't live in palaces at the College of Colossal Calluses. 3.5 million men reclaimed the plains and groomed the land. Roosevelt's Tree Army did more than plan. swamp, cut 28,000 trails to Trump, built 100,000 miles of road, strung just as much line for the telephone, campgrounds, buildings, 800 state parks, carry the CCC trademark. Save the soil, plant the trees, we can take it. Clean the air for people to breathe, we can take it. 3 squares a day and all is right, we can take it. From Reveille to Taps at night.
Minnesota has a passion for beer, from the first ales brewed by settlers to the modern craft beer movement. We spoke with historian Doug Hoverson and 2 Minnesotan brewers to hear about how beer has changed over time.
Beer for beer, I think Minnesota can hold its own with any place in the world. Minnesota has an outstanding reputation nationally among the brewing community.
All the amazing craft breweries we've got, even seen as being very cool and upcoming on a national level.
You have a pretty healthy German population that put Minnesota pretty rock solid into the beer category.
More than 350 breweries have opened their doors for business, starting in 1849. Of course, about 275 of them also closed their doors to business. The first brewers were early settlers who came out here and decided they needed a couple of things. One, something safe to drink, and also something with a little bit of flavor. Beer has the benefit of being boiled in the course of its manufacture, and that makes it safe to drink.
We are the second oldest family-owned brewery in the country. So the Schell story starts in 1828. August Schell is born in Durbach, Germany. Makes his way to the United States. There he meets his wife, Teresa, and in talking with some friends, they hear about this settlement of New Ulm in the territory of Minnesota. So they pack up the wagon, they head up north, but in a town of Germans and no brewery, it's not hard to figure out what you should be doing.
The Germans brought the tastes of their home country and also the cultures of their home country, because the beer garden and the beer hall were not just a place to have beer. They were a place to meet, to listen to music, to talk about politics, and all of these things were lubricated by a well-made lager beer.
There was no refrigeration. There really wasn't much take-home beer. I mean, if you were going to drink, you went to the saloon.
Anti-alcoholism had been advancing for quite a while, but the timing for them was perfect, and you probably would not have had Prohibition were it not for the fact that we were at war with Germany, and you could make the claim that if you buy a beer, the money is probably going straight to the Kaiser.
Before Prohibition, breweries were in most cases local and a lot smaller, and there were breweries all across the country, little ones here and there.
If it was a small family firm, they'd probably be able to keep the bills paid by making some other products on the side. But near beer was not particularly close to beer unless you were a bad judge of distance.
They used to say that the only good near beer was one that tastes good when you respiked it, because that's what everybody did with near beer. So
the Germans of Minnesota just could not believe that this insanity would last forever. So they kept planning for the days when it would come back. April 7th, 1933 is New Beer's Day. There were parties in nearly every city that had gotten their liquor licenses passed in time. They were allowed to begin shipments at 12:01 a.m. Trucks were ready, train cars were ready, factory whistles blew, in some cities church bells rang, but there were some close calls as people scrambled to get their beer. So during the war, there were a number of stories about troops halfway around the world who ended up going to the PX, getting a beer, and it turned out to be the beer from their hometown. So it was great for morale. They also decided it was great for morale at home as well. America cemented its taste for light-colored, light-flavored lager. During the 1950s and 60s, there were a number of brewers who said publicly that what they were trying for was a sweeter, lighter beer to appeal to the tastes of people who had been raised on soda pop.
The whole nationwide business climate had changed a lot, and there was a lot more consolidation, and breweries just grew bigger and bigger, and also started watering down their products to make them more appealing to a larger number of people.
And so it was harder and harder to distinguish between Shell's, Pabst, Miller, Hamm's, Grain Belt. So the competition gets down to pricing and advertising.
When you were thinking about Minnesota beer in the 1960s and 70s, you were thinking about Grain Belt, Schmidt, or especially Hamm's. As great as the Hamm's beer was, it didn't necessarily sell more beer. Their peak production and their peak ranking was actually before the Hamm's beer became internationally famous. And when Miller went national with Light, they advertised at just an extraordinary rate, and almost no other brewer in the country could keep up.
You know, the consumer then all of a sudden gets tired and is looking for something new. At the start of the craft beer revolution, well, what's new in the United States? Well, ales.
What's happening in the beer world now is really a return plus. The craft brewers of Minnesota have gone significantly past resurrecting the styles and have started to tweak them and add their own twists. A brewer in 1880 would have never thought of trying to get a pale ale that had a melon mango sort of flavor and aroma. It was supposed to taste like beer. Minnesota's beer drinkers are discovering how much variety there is in that one four-letter word.
Poetry Out Loud is a contest that encourages the nation's youth to learn about great poetry. Jacoby Wallace of Minot was North Dakota's 2015 State Poetry Out Loud champion. Listen to one of his favorite poems entitled How I Discovered Poetry.
It was like soul kissing. The way the words filled my mouth as Mrs. Purdy read from her desk. How I discovered poetry, I like that one because it was raw and it had a lot of kind of like juxtaposition. In order to divulge into this poem and truly understand it, I had to research who the author was, and her name is Marilyn Nelson. This is how she was introduced, not in a bright and shiny way like in Poetry Out Loud, but in a kind of awful way, and to ridicule and racism. I really had to analyze what I was saying and what person I had to be in order to fully get the poem. How I Discovered Poetry by Marilyn Nelson. It was like soul kissing. The way the words filled my mouth as Mrs. Purdy read from her desk. All the other kids owned an hour ahead to the 3:15, but Mrs. Purdy and I wandered lonely as cloud borne by a breeze off Mount Parnassus. She must have seen the darkest eyes in the room brim. The next day she gave me a poem she'd chosen especially for me to read to the all except for me white class. She smiled when she told me to read it. Smiled harder, said, oh yes I could. She smiled harder and harder until I stood and opened my mouth to banjo-playing darkies, pickaninnies, disses and dats. When I finished, my classmates stared at the floor. We walked, silent, to the buses, awed by the power of words.
Q5 is a band from the Twin Valley region of Minnesota. Two sisters, Tanya Kemper and Monica Winter, bring life and vitality to the band with their powerful vocals and intoxicating stage presence. Their music ranges from the 50s and 60s to country and classic rock to today's current pop trends.
into the water. Untie all the cables and roll. Step onto the AstroTurf. Get yourself a koozie, let's go. Who said anything about skiing? Floating is all I wanna do. You can climb the ladder, just don't rock the boat while I barbecue. On the pontoon, making waves and catching rays upon the roof. Jumping up the back door, act like you don't want to. Party in slow motion, out here in the open, motorboat, yeah. Reach your hand out into the cooler. Don't drink it if the mountains are blue. Try to keep it steady as you recline on your black inner tube. Pontoon, making waves and catching rays upon the roof. Jumping up the back door, act like you don't want to. Party in slow motion, out here in the open, motorboat, yeah. Water slide can't beat the heat, so let's take a ride. On the pontoon, making waves and catching rays upon the roof. Jumping up the back door, act like you don't want to. Party in slow motion, out here in the open, motorboat, yeah. On the pontoon, on the pontoon. Back this hitch up into the water. On the pontoon. This magic moment, so different and so new, is like any other. Until I kissed you, and then it happened. It took me by surprise. I knew that you felt it too, by the look in your eyes. Sweeter than wine, sweeter than wine, softer than a summer night, softer than a summertime. Everything I wanna have, whenever I hold you tight. This magic moment, while your lips are close to mine, will last forever, forever till the end of time. Whoa, 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 whoa. Sweeter than wine, softer than the summer.
If you know of an artist, a topic, or an organization in our region that you think might make for an interesting segment, please contact us at prairiemosaic@prairiepublic.org. I'm Bob Dambach.
And I'm Barb Gravel. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Prairie Mosaic.
Prairie Mosaic is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, the North Dakota Council on the Arts, and by the members of Prairie Public.